Welcome back to another episode of the K-Swap 240 build presented by Turn 14 Distribution.
Got us a Type S oil pump here. It's time to find out if it buys us any real estate.
DP, your hat matches the 240 quite well.
It does, yeah. I wore this to troll you today because Dev and I were talking last time about how you should really just go turbo from the start with this setup.
No.
Be so simple with a downpipe.
We've got to try the NA way.
We do for sure. And speaking of the NA way, I was chatting with Eric Levine from Levine Motorsports yesterday, who hooked us up with this Type S oil pump assembly. And he's got a really good recipe to make some sweet NA power out of this thing. So maybe I'll talk you into that instead before we
It's
go
probably
to
a
turbo.
better chance than turbo, but...
This will happen next year, though. I'm going to make it happen next year. In the meantime, this is a Type S oil pump assembly, which does have to be machined slightly in this area. You can see Eric's removed some material here.
Yep, to fit onto the K24, right?
So that's already been taken care of. There's some other goodies that we'll show you later that go along with this to fit it up properly. But as you can see, there's a...
Yeah, that's the old one. That's why we're changing it out. We're trying to gain some real estate here.
You can see it saves, you know, all of this. So what's that, 2 inches?
Yeah,
maybe
there.
2.5 inches. So that we were thinking is going to give us the real estate we need, where we may not even have to notch the subframe. We're going to modify the pan first and see how that all looks. This also saves a bunch of weight, and according to Eric, will also free up some power because, as you would expect, rotating all this mess in here, all these balance shafts, is going to rob power. So this is multiple levels of win happening here, but the biggest one obviously is just the real estate we're gaining back.
Man, Eric did a nice job trimming up this oil pump for us. Would you look at that? Fits this 2.4 like a champ. And as you can see, we're gonna have good clearance on it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of difference.
That does
doesn't it?
give us a lot more real estate to work with here.
Not bad.
Will it be enough? That is the question. You guys are along for the journey here. We're trying to blaze some new trails, so it's going to be a lot of trial and error. This hopefully will work. If it doesn't, then we're going to try some other options. But we're confident and hoping that this Type S oil pump is the answer. We thought the S2000 one will be the shorter one, but after a little bit of review and examination, the Type S one is actually cheaper. So if you got a K20 and you want to rev it out to like 10,000 RPM, then the S2000 one is the better option. But with the K24, the Type S is the way to go. So that's why we ended up with this one. We may have mentioned in the previous episode that we were going to go S2000, but this oil pump sits at the same spot as the S2000 one does. So they're all kind of, this is as short as we're going to get OE. So let's move on to the oil pan. Now we're going to chop the oil pan right to the end here and see what we're working with. That way we can fit it in and see how much of the subframe we got to cut. So what are we looking at, Vin?
So we're just gonna cut it off just a little bit behind where the oil picket would be.
Yeah.
And we'll have those section clear and then pretty much flatten this. This should hopefully give us enough clearance over the steering rack and the subframe.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And for all of you wondering, yes, there is a massive dent in this oil pan. That's correct. Pan is marked here, and now comes the fun job of cutting this out. Yes. There we go. Our oil pan is starting to take shape here. For the record, we aren't using this one though. This is just a template. I will buy a new one that won't be so damn rusty. Look at this one. Pitiful. Our pan is on, and as you can see, we've got a little bit of clearance from the oil pickup. Test fit number 2 here. Whoa!
That got exciting. Is this the link that was bound up a bit?
It was just on the other side.
Woo! Okay. Yes.
man.
All right,
We're close.
we are close. Yeah, you can see over here, DP. So we're the clearance is pretty good. So we've already made a mark where we're gonna notch this out to give us a little bit more space. But right now, it's sitting and clearing the whole setup. So you can see Vin's made some marks. The plan is actually, originally we thought we were just gonna take that lip out, but we said screw it. We wanna move this engine as far back as we can because as you can see up here, we've got lots of space. So we're trying to move this engine back as far as we possibly can.
absolutely.
Which means notching that subframe because realistically, it's just a subframe. That's an easy job if somebody wants to reproduce this type of setup. People do that all the time with RVs anyways.
Angle grinder is not a hard job.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the fun stuff.
There it is. That's quite the chunk. It's a lot of subframe there,
That's
DP.
good. You just save weight on a race car.
Of course,
that's key.
yeah, that's the answer.
All part of the lightning procedure.
And it looks like we're gonna have quite a bit more space to play with here.
I'm amazed how good the condition of the subframe is for a Canadian car.
Yeah.
There's no rust
All
on
that
it.
underspray, man.
It is covered in a
It does
healthy
work.
layer of goo. Look at that. Look at that.
The
thickness
goo
of
is
that.
there. The goo is certainly there.
It's a Canadian car for you.
We aborted the mission here on our test fit with our subframe cut. That's because we want to put the valve cover on and extend this arm because we're moving back. The engine is going backwards, which is awesome.
So how many times in and out is this so far, boys?
Was that number 3?
And that's number 3.
Okay, all right, let's keep count.
So much more clearance now. Looks like we may have a tiny little amount of clearance. Who knows? Like that. This
How
is
much
using
bow
just a.
does the hood have in
Yeah,
it,
this
right?
is just using a flat piece of aluminum. But if it bows, I mean,
It's gonna be close.
could make it happen. I feel like we may do a little bit of notching.
Might have to vent the hood.
Yeah, do something
Yeah.
to make it work. But that's okay.
It's not a big deal.
I mean, it's a pretty tall motor, and what we're asking it to do here is
Or that JDM valve cover.
unconventional, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? There may be some other options too. A K20 may fit nicer, per se, but
that's
it's-
as low
it's
as
hard
we
to
can
tell.
go?
Yeah, I think so. If you look, like now we've got a ton of space here, which is great, but not a lot of space underneath before we hit the
The pickup?
no, not the pickup. What's that? The windage tray.
Oh, okay.
So who knows? And then the transmission's hitting in the. Oh no! I mean, it's clear. Everything's tight.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So, but we're gonna make this work regardless. If we have to cut the hood a little bit, it'll be okay. I'll just paint the valve cover red, right? Vin threw some jack stands on the oil pan and the transmission, so we've got ourselves a floating engine right now. Well, ish.
Yeah.
Sorta. But we noticed that there's a problem here on the right side where the steering rack bolt hits, and I think
The steering rack is touching the oil
you're right,
pan.
right on the back side as well. So we've got an issue there, and our solution I think for that is going to be lower the subframe. So if we add some subframe spacers, drop this down by an inch, we can even take the motor down lower, and it gives us more clearance in the tunnel. I think that's going to be our next play, but as you can see, this engine is pretty damn far back, and it's pretty low, where I don't think we're going to have too many hood clearance issues as we talked about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's gonna clear for
Yeah.
sure. Engine coming out at number 4. You're getting good at it, PT. I guess Vin helped.
I'm always paranoid about the engine falling, though. Even though it's on here with these big chains. One of the drawbacks with trying to lower the subframe is making sure that the steering still works. And just by looking at it, we already may be pretty low on the arm here, so that may force us to have to replace this U-joint. But I hope that's not the case. We may be able to slide it up this way, so we'll see. Anyways, I'm going to loosen this up, and once we lower the subframe, we can play with it and figure out whether this is going to work. Okay, so here is our bolt and our nuts, which we're gonna have to replace. So we need to find ones that are gonna be a little bit longer, and that means either a trip to our local bolt store or these guys over here. Check them out, DP. They're
Going through
raiding
the stash over here, yeah. Yeah.
Or
Any luck, boys?
I don't know.
we decided to buy some 1-inch thick aluminum to make those subframe spacers, and guess what? Of course they didn't have the size we needed, so now we're cutting it, and this has been going for about 15 minutes. Got another 15 minutes at least left, and then we can get back to work. But right now it is very quiet at the shop until we wait for this damn piece of metal to cut. Finally.
Woo.
That is the longest cut ever.
It's a little warm.
Yeah, that's 30 minutes, I'd say.
I know you're a little freaked out about putting a 1-inch spacer in there, but it's going to be okay, PT.
Well, I hope so.
I remember talking to Rich at Excessive Manufacturing about it because I had the same concerns of you about what it was going to do to the geometry. And he's like, in their testing, they found that 1-inch was about as big as you can go before the geometry really starts to get funky. They do sell like 2-inch spacers there too, and he's like, stick with 1-inch or less, and it's much easier to correct for bump steer.
Okay.
So that's what he said on Toyotas. I don't see why this would be any different.
Of course.
So I think we're going to be good.
The trust is in you, DP.
Let's drill some holes, buddy. Let's drill some holes.
Those spacers got me worried about ground clearance,
I can
DP.
see you're stressing about it. I think it's gonna be fine, but
You've never owned an S chassis. You don't know the struggle.
you're not that low.
I know I'm not that low. That's the problem.
This is a grip car. You don't need to go low. You need to go more high for grip.
Go. All right, enough. Too much.
Too much.
One more pump. Too many. Well, it does look like we have a ton clearance now.
See?
We can go super low.
See? Don't bad talk the subframe spacers until you see how much room you just bought yourself.
But bad talk then when I'm driving down the road and there's like
Smashing
a
off
poor little furry creature that doesn't clear underneath.
there's too many squirrels in the world already,
Yeah.
PT. Not enough K-Swapped S14s.
I lied. I'm not too worried about the squirrels. I'm worried about everything else.
Progress, PT, progress.
Yes, we are getting there.
She is floating in the bay.
She is, and that lowered subframe gave us a good amount of space. I can judge by the hood clearance.
Oh, yeah, it's
we're
gonna
gonna
clear,
have
no problem.
no problems there.
Yeah.
Road clearance, well, we just won't know until we get this thing together. That's just how it goes.
This isn't a road clearance car.
I still want to make sure it's a street car.
Yeah,
We're not
no, you're
going a
right.
race car here, you know? Then we
No, you're right.
flat bottom it, we'd be all good. But,
No, I think you're going to be okay there. And
Yeah.
So I guess the next step, according to Vin, is let's get a pan in there.
yeah, so he's got to
Before
get a
building the
pan
mounts.
welded up so we can figure out exactly where it sits and whatnot if we have any interference. Then we can work on getting mounts in.
Exciting times.
So very exciting times. As always, if you like this video,
do that.
hit the like button.
Thumbs up.
Make sure to subscribe because we have a lot of very cool stuff coming down the pipeline for this. So follow along as we continue our K-Swap 240.
Oh, like butter.
We forgot to mark it, guys.
This is the difference
Forgot to mark
between
it.
an amateur and a professional.
That's true. Very true.